Well, the 2024 Pro Football Hall of Fame class was announced in February, and so I'm going to talk about it tonight. I'm going to go through each inductee. I'm going to go through kind of their highlights, their career, what I think about it, and I'm going to give you what I think if they should be in or if they should not be in. All right, so the first inductee was Dwight Freeney, a great defensive end for mostly the Colts. So I have the names here of the team that they are going into Canton with in blue, and then the other teams listed they play for in black. So I forgot that Freeney played for. I remember him as a Charger, but I don't remember him with the other three teams: Cardinals, Seahawks, and Lions. Kind of in there as a extra pass rusher help, but Dwight Freeney, one of the most fearsome pass rushers of his era and of all time. You look at his great speed and combine that with the turf there with the Colts home field, and he was quite a weapon there. So you think about the Indianapolis Colts of the 2000s, one of the great teams in NFL history. They're going to go down as one of the great teams. A lot of people compare them to the 90s Braves winning all those titles with just the one ring. Freeney, a big part of those teams from 2002 to towards at least the end of the 2000s. But those Colts teams known mostly for their offensive juggernauts. You think of all the great offensive players that they had: Jeff Saturday, Reggie Wayne, Edgerrin James, Peyton Manning, Marvin Harrison, and a lot of great other role players. The defenses were usually not great, but sometimes they were pretty good. But by far the best player on those Colts teams, on those Colts defenses, was Dwight Freeney. And he had an instant impact his rookie season in 2002. 13 sacks that year, 20 tackles for loss, 9 forced fumbles, and the rest was history, boys. He had that spin move that just befuddled some of the great offensive linemen. And also, one of the things I talk about is I look at the opponents that some of these great players faced, and you think about Dwight Freeney in his career, with the Colts, especially in the playoffs, going up against some very good teams there and some great quarterbacks like Peyton Manning, like Tom Brady and Ben Roethlisberger and Phillip Rivers, among some others in that AFC, and getting to 2 Super Bowls. Dwight Freeney, and I'm going to do this for each of these players. This is an easy one. I'm going to give him a easy yes. He should be in Canton. That is an easy pick right there. Next one is Andre Johnson, wide receiver, went to Miami, and he played the same era as Dwight Freeney. He was, of course, a Texan. He was with the Texans mostly. I remember him at the end of his career with the Colts, and I don't really remember with the Titans. But you look at his highlights there. He's 11th all time in receptions and with receiving yards. Andre Johnson, in an era of dominant wide receivers in the 2000s, you compare him with some of the other greats at that time, and just off the top of my head, thinking about Marvin Harrison, Isaac Bruce. Those are 2 great Hall of Fame receivers, the same era. Both had Hall of Fame quarterbacks throwing the football. And then a couple others, Randy Moss, Terrell Owens. Those 2 also in the Hall of Fame, same era as Andre Johnson, had very good to great quarterbacks during both of their career, T.O. and Moss. But Andre Johnson, that's what really sets him apart. He played with inferior quarterbacks. The best quarterback he played with was, not counting his time with Colts and the Titans, the best quarterbacks that he played with in his time with the Houston Texans, Matt Schaub. Okay, so that really sets him apart. And you just look at his stats there: 7 years, 1,000-yard season, including 3 seasons, 1,500 yards. Andre Johnson, also a fierce competitor, one of the great competitors of the time. Some of these wide receivers are going to have a hard time getting in because it was the era of the wide receiver. Andre Johnson, I think, is a bona fide. He's in that 1,000 receptions club too. But I say he definitely deserves to be in. All right, the next one is Patrick Willis, linebacker. We all remember him, 2007 to 2014. Great years, tackling machine. He was part of a dominant defense of that 49ers teams that went to 3 straight NFC title games, the Jim Harbaugh era. Now, he had a short career. So, he only played 8 seasons, really good seasons. He did go to 7 of those years with the Pro Bowls. He had 950 tackles. So, a very, very good career for Patrick Willis. If you look at great inside linebackers of that time, you think about tackling machines. I think you got to look closer at a guy like, say, London Fletcher, who had more tackles for a more extended period of time, a great leader. I think you got to look at him before Patrick Willis. Great player in his own right, but I got to say, Patrick Willis, no, I got to put him out. I'm going to watch out because Jackass Jay's going to throw some eggs at me now, but hey, just my opinion. Next one is Randy Gradishar, linebacker for it goes back to the 70s now, 1974 to 1983 with the Broncos only. So we got a couple players here, Freeney and Gradishar, both linebackers who play with the same team. So I like that. It's kind of cool. 7-time Pro Bowls for Gradishar. Look at all those tackles compared to Willis. I know he played longer, but 10 seasons. Great career for Randy Gradishar. He was part of that 1970s Orange Crush defense of the Broncos. This was 70s and then into the early 80s. Those teams don't get a ton of credit, but I think people are starting to respect them now. Kind of looking back, just a monster linebacker. He was maybe the best player on this defense. And again, kind of look at some of those teams from the 70s. Real physical era, solid 10-year career. Think about the great teams he faced in the AFC. Those great Raider teams, those great Steeler teams, compared to those the great defenses. And the Orange Crush of the 70s is right up there with those teams. Really, if you think about it. Again, I think he was the best player on that Broncos defense, and one of the top linebackers of his time, folks. His best year was 1978. Of course, that was the year that Denver broke through and got to the Super Bowl in New Orleans. Lost to Free Jack Balls' Cowboys. It was a great career for Randy Gradishar, and he finally gets in with the Veterans Committee. I'm going to say yes, he does deserve to be in. So congratulations. I'm going to put a check mark next to Gradishar. So great career for him. All right, next one on the list is Steve McMichael. All right, Bear Scott, here you go, baby. We got McMichael. Look at his career. 1980, he was drafted by the Patriots. I think he was there for a year, and then 1981 went to the Bears. It was really the beginning of kind of their building that team. I believe that was McMahon's first year, maybe 82. And then he finished his career with the Packers in 1994. Had a 2-time All-Pro and 95 sacks. All right, let's talk about Steve McMichael, a fan favorite at Soldier Field, part of that 4-6 defense, of course. You look at he was one of the better players on that defense. You look at that defensive line, and you see you got Dan Hampton, you got Richard Dent, the two ends, both in the Hall of Fame, and now we have a third player, McMichael, from that just from that defensive line in Canton. William Perry is next, maybe next year. No. But that really tells you how great that those defenses were for the Bears, with 3 defensive linemen in. And don't forget the 2 linebackers are in, Otis Wilson and Mike Singletary. And Wilbur Marshall, he's a borderline Hall of Famer. I don't think he's getting in, but he was also a great player. So Steve McMichael now in, and he was, this one I kind of, when I first glanced at it, I went, no. I don't think he's a Hall of Famer. And then this one that kind of won me over as I went and looked through kind of his numbers. And really the one that jumped out is his 95 sacks, second all-time NFL history for interior defensive linemen. That is really, really impressive. And then, of course, think about in the 80s and then kind of early 90s, the teams that McMichael was going up against, especially in that NFC, was just so dominant in that period. I mean, facing teams like great teams and into the playoffs, like the 49ers and the Redskins and the Giants, even the Eagles there at the end, going up against Steve McMichael was in the Fog Bowl, okay, against the Eagles, a great team. Going up against his former defensive coordinator, Buddy Ryan. Even the Rams were pretty good there in the 80s, but went up against a lot of great teams, sacked some great quarterbacks. I'm going to say, and Bear Scott's going to be happy about this, I'm going to say yes, and also he's the one player on this list, the only player to be in Tecmo Bowl and Tecmo Super Bowl. He was in both of the games, so that's like the clincher right there. You got a little Tecmo representation. Steve McMichael, of course, battling the ALS now, so good to see him. Good to see him get into Canton this year. So I gotta say yes on McMichael. All right, so the next one is Devin Hester. All right, so Devin Hester was drafted in the second round in 2006 by the Chicago Bears to replace Azuma. We got another Bear here. All right, Bear Scott, here we go. So we got another Bear. Azuma was the kick returner they had before him, and this was kind of a controversial pick in the second round that year. A lot of the Bears fans were not happy. They wanted other needs filled there, but Hester drafted as a cornerback. People forget he was a defensive back, and of course he burst onto the scene that season in 2006 as a kick returner, punt returner, returned the first play for a touchdown in Super Bowl 40 against the Colts. Looked like, maybe the Bears can pull the upset. Great rookie season, great career, and he was more of an emergency cornerback. Okay, so he didn't really play much defense. Kind of like emergency, like Matthew Slater of the Patriots playing wide receiver. Okay, like listed as a receiver, but really a special teams guy. But Devin Hester also played some. They worked him in at wide receiver too into the offense. I mean, the Bears would do anything at receiver because they've had nothing going on there in the entire franchise history. So putting in Hester kind of made sense to try anything there. I mean, their top two receptions leaders career are running backs Walter Payton and Matt Forte, like under 500. Someday it's got to change, But just bad history with receivers. But yeah, Hester, he did have a couple seasons there where he had like 50 or more catches, and so he did a little more on offense than I thought he did, but nothing great. Awesome return man. But here's the problem. Okay, here's a trivia question for you guys. All right. What player in NFL history has the second most combined total yards? Okay. So we know the first one is, that's easy, right? Well, not for the football room, but for most people, everyone knows who that is. The number one most all-time yards combined is Jerry Rice of the 49ers, Jay. But number two, who is it? What do you think? Maybe I'll ask this in the room if you're not sure. Who has the second most yards combined? So some of you might think Emmitt Smith, because he has the most rushing yards of all time and a good amount more than even Walter Payton. Some of you might say, Larry Fitzgerald, who's the number 2 receiving yards. You're wrong. The answer would be Brian Mitchell, number 30, the 5th round draft pick by the Washington Redskins in 1990, southwestern Louisiana. Brian Mitchell, who has also played some running back, is the second most yards combined. He was a feared kick and punt return specialist. He's got a Super Bowl ring. He had kind of a different style of returns than Devin Hester. He was a shorter guy, a little more compact, more physical return man. He would go kind of through the middle type, where Hester was more of a sideline, for the most part, going to the sidelines type of return man. Think about this, guys. Mitchell was also a very solid on offense, mostly as a running back, especially when the Norv Turner era, he kind of started working him in as a third down back kind of player, could catch passes out of the backfield. If you compare Hester and Mitchell, I think Hester had 16 offensive touchdowns in his career, or 17 offensive touchdowns in his career. Mitchell had 16, and the other stats are pretty similar. So it's kind of a push there. But unlike Hester, Mitchell also was a great special teams player on he played on kickoff teams. He would run down the field and punish people with big tackles. And don't forget, he also was an emergency quarterback, filling in the 1990 Monday Night Football game, the body bag game, his rookie year, leading the Redskins down the field on a touchdown drive in that game at quarterback, because he was a quarterback in college too, as well as a running back. He's got a Super Bowl ring. Hester does not. He's a great player on all special teams. Hester was not. He's got more total yards than anybody in the history of the NFL besides Rice. Brian Mitchell, one of the greatest football players in the history of the National Football League, should be in Canton, Ohio, played for the Redskins from 1990 to 1999, then played with the Eagles from 2000 to 2002, was very good for those Eagle teams, also, people forget, in the playoffs. Mitchell's last act as a Redskin before being dumped to the side by Dan Snyder was returning a kick in the playoffs in the divisional round game for a touchdown to make the score 13-0, a game that they would eventually lose to Tampa Bay. But Mitchell should be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and based on that alone, I'm going to say no to Devin Hester. There's no way he should be in first before Mitchell as a return man. But he had a great career. I'm not taking it out on him for this, but I'm going to say no. The next one is Julius Peppers, slam dunk. This is easy, guys. This one is a slam dunk, and I use that term fittingly since he was a great basketball player as well at the University of North Carolina. The Tar Heels is a great, Andy, Ace used to talk about him all the time. A great defensive end, 2002 to 2018. Look at the stats. They speak for themselves. 4 All-Pros, 9 Pro Bowls, 159 and a half sacks in his career, including 6 touchdowns. The only player with 100 in NFL history to have 150 sacks and 10 interceptions. And 4 of those interceptions were returned for touchdowns. He's up there on the list of career touchdowns by defensive linemen. Number 1 is Jason Taylor. I know that George Martin of Gideon's Giants had that record for years, but his longevity is also very impressive. A Pro Bowler in his 14th season with the Green Bay Packers. So incredible career for Julius Peppers. Ace used to talk about him all the time and say he was a fraud. He piled up sacks when it didn't matter. Of course, he said this after he was not a Panthers fan. Maybe he said it a little bit while he was a Panthers fan. I just had that he hated UNC thing going on. But yeah, Peppers, great to see him in the Hall of Fame. Sorry, Ace, but a day has come. First ballot, gotta say yes. So I'm saying 5 of these players, I'll give them my thumbs up for, they definitely deserve to be in. But for all of them, I gotta say congratulations to the 7 inductees for making it in. And of course, this sets up our Hall of Fame game party on Wire Club that night coming up, where you'll see these players, on the sidelines that weekend being inducted. But cool to see guys from different eras. We have some guys from the 2000s eras getting in. 5 of those guys, most of us watched. And then we got, guys from we got a 70s player and then an 80s player, and 3 former Bears. Peppers played for the Panthers. Mostly had two tenors with them bookended. Also was Bears and Packers and was great with both of those teams. So congratulations to all of them. See you guys for the party on Wire Club if we have that for the Hall of Fame game. Let me know if you agree or disagree on what I think about who should be in and who shouldn't be in. And all right, John from Canton, what do you think about these guys making it into the Hall of Fame? All right, boys. Thanks for watching. Peace.